Good morning. Welcome to episode 389 of the Sunday New York Times Read Along with your hosts, Neil Parekh and Sreenivasan. We are live on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and our Digimentors website. Please like, comment, share, retweet, do all the things you do to make sure that people find today's show. We are going to cover several issues today. Obviously, the big news is the attack on Iran. But on late Friday night, there was the Department of War and its clash with Anthropic. They kicked Anthropic to the curb, and OpenAI, reached a deal to work with the Department of Defense. We'll dig into that a little bit. And we'll also look at the New York Times State of the Union coverage on A1, both for this week's State of the Union, but we also have the last 10 years worth of New York Times A1 pages that we will take a look. And we also have some insights from the New York Times print editor, Tom Jolly, that we will be sharing with you later in the show. I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors, Muckrack and the Graphic History Company. Thank you so much for your support of the show. It helps us keep this community going, keep this conversation going, where we look at the news, engage with our audience, and also take a critical eye to coverage and the decisions that are made every day when covering the news. I also want to reference that the show is produced by Digimentors, the social and digital company that Sree co-founded with his good friend Andrew Lee. I'm the Vice President of Events and Communications. We do digital marketing, events, and digital programs like this, strategic communications, trainings, workshops. We help with staffing and recruiting. We also help with AI policy and run workshops. So thank you again for all of your support. The New York Times Read Along, of course, is produced in partnership with Scroll Global and Scroll Global, one of India's most important independent websites. We're so appreciative that we are on their YouTube page every Sunday. We have several people who have joined the show to say hi, but first we'll bring on our co-host, Sreenivasan. Sree, good to see you.
Good to see you, Neil. Good morning. Good morning, everyone around the world. Yesterday, we woke up to a war being carried out in our name as missiles flew from afar to various parts of the Middle East, some mostly from America attacking Iran, Israel attacking Iran, and then the retaliation at attacking Israel as well as American military bases around the region. Multiple countries were hit. And this is a war being carried out in our name without our Congress authorizing any of it. And for those who are cheering the regime change that they hope will happen, you know the history of American regime change in Venezuela, Iraq, Libya, Iran in 1953, and. And so we're going to discuss all of that today. And we are grateful to this community. If you're watching for the first time, we do this Sundays, 8:30 to 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. We're also available as a podcast on Apple and Spotify. We're on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, as well as our Facebook, as well as digimentors.group. Look for the New York Times Read Along there, and also check out all the cool stuff that we're able to do thanks to you. Neil, I've already had a very busy morning because I had to get our newsletter out. We really wanted to make sure we can talk about the newsletter today. All of you who support both the Read Along as well as our Substack, Sreenet.substack.com, Sreenet.substack.com makes a big difference in what we're able to do. You know, these are labors of love, but your support by being a watcher, somebody who shares our content, someone who is able to upgrade on Substack to a paid account. If you can do that, it makes such a difference to us. My headline today, Neil: why fear killer AI when we have Trump and Hegseth? We do need humans in the loop, but not these humans. And this amazing cartoon by Ann Telenes, who is the Washington Post cartoonist who resigned on principle January 2025 because of the capitulation of Bezos to Donald Trump. What she's showing here, Neil. Can you see the cartoon? You
Yeah,
see
yeah, yeah.
the Epstein files are the distraction here that he's trying to have. So she calls this the great distraction, and that's what we're doing.
Absolutely.
And
Wow.
so please support us if you can. We have so much great content that we have on the on the newsletter now, including a whole new channel that we call OK TV. You've heard of Prestige TV and Peak TV? Well, now there is just OK TV, where we Zach Peterson and Tara Ruff write about TV that's just so, but still so much fun to watch. And I also write about my love affair with television for 50 years. And you should know that the legendary Joyce Carol Oates calls this newsletter unambiguous political and culture content, highly recommended. So please subscribe to her Substack and ours. Again, sreenet.substack.com. We are very grateful to everyone who supports these two labors of love, the newsletter as well as the read along. So thank you everybody for being here. Let's see who is watching from around the world. So many people have joined us. Patricia is watching from New York. Pradnya is watching in and says tuning in from the skies above Atlanta. So she's flying today. Ken Fisher is watching from Iowa. Thank you. John is watching from the East Village. Sunil, thanks for making my day. How nice is that? Very, very sweet. We appreciate it. Everyone who's watching, hit forward right now on the platform of your choice, and your friends can watch it live or later. We do a big hello to everyone watching this as a recording. And tell us where you're watching from. Tell us about your Sunday. Miriam says, good morning from Hell's Kitchen. Sudha Parekh, Neil, over to you.
What am I supposed to do, Sree?
Almost did a spit take there.
Hi, Mom. Uh, this is my weekly hello to my mom.
But not the
We of
only
course
weekly hello. One of the
not the
weekly
only
hello.
weekly hello. We did talk earlier in the week. I did give her a tour of our kitchen that is still being finished in terms of the renovation. But I will say it is always great to have her watching every week.
And it reminds me, Neil, of my mom, who was watching our shows on a regular basis as well. And so we are so grateful to our elders, our parents, our grandparents who are around us always, either in person or with us. Your dad, who loved the New York Times, and that's the reason we got started with your working on this. So thank you, everyone. And I always say, call your mom, everybody. Call your mom and dad. If you're privileged enough, lucky enough to be able to do that, call them today. Gunter is watching from Austria. Thank you. Miriam, we already said. Here's Deb watching and says, woke this morning in fear what might come to this day in the Middle East and here at home. Good morning, all. You're correct, Deb, that we have seen the Iranian government, such as it is, has pledged to stab America in the heart. And that can be interpreted, obviously, as things could happen here in New York City, in America, anywhere in the world, Washington, D.C. So this is a time of great fear. Seishu says, hello, Neil and Sri. I can't really say good morning. We're about to be snookered into another illegal war. We already have, Seishu. That's the sad part. But thank you for joining us. And here's Dan. Great to have the read along on a big news weekend such as this. And we have so much news to cover, and we'll get to that in just a second. Just say hello to a few more people. Stefan is watching and says hi to the read along family. Hope everyone is well. Can you believe it's snowing again? That's right. It's about to snow here in New York, but it's already snowing in New Jersey. Tirlok Malik, great friend, great filmmaker, restaurateur, watching. And you can see the NRI TV Film Club. Naomi says she's digging out from 3 feet of snow in Rhode Island. And Kaveri Madhavan just boarding a 6-hour flight to San Francisco, but we'll catch up on replay tonight. Have a good one. She's a former guest, an Irish Indian writer and thinker, and so we're so glad to have her. And final hello before we get to everybody else. We get to the paper. Ron Thomas is watching. Good morning from Dubai. Ron, would you believe that Emirates Airlines is letting me check in to my flight to Dubai on Monday night, even though Dubai has been hit. Terminal 3 has been hit in Dubai Airport, one of my favorite airports in the world. My family, my brother, my sister-in-law, and their son live in Dubai, so I'm very worried about them. But they are strong and brave, and telling me that they heard explosions, but still staying strong. So we're grateful to them and grateful to you, Ron. We hope you stay safe and aren't traveling too much. And we have so many other people. We'll get to them. But Neil, we get to look at the paper. I want everyone to see the very uh
But before you do
serious.
that,
Yeah. Oh,
I
lovely.
wanted to
Look at
bring
that.
up this
Yeah.
this throwback, this picture of you and Ron from January 5th, 2020. One of the last, if not the last, relaunch you did in person at your house before the pandemic
Yeah,
cried
it
open.
was a very special day that
6
Ron
years.
came, and we had other folks also stop by. I think Stefan was there, and Andrew and May were also there. So it was a very special day. And then I went to India for 3 weeks and was roaming around India without a problem and without a mask, and then came back, and of course the world ended or went in lockdown after that. So now we're ready to take a look at the newspaper and just to we're students of print here. This is like people studying Latin in great detail in the last, and at this point, it might seem really odd, but we are students. So this is Saturday's paper, and that tells you what was on the mind of Americans on Friday as they went to bed. An absolutely atrocious story of how victims' families were stunned at the failure of an air safety bill. You remember that terrible accident that happened in the DC area, a helicopter and a plane crashed. And so new technology was introduced to prevent that from happening. And thanks to Hegseth and Republicans, that bill was canceled, even though was killed, even though the Senate voted unanimously. This Senate, which can't agree on anything, voted unanimously. And then this was killed. So this would have been just, with this administration, Neil, there's so much terrible stuff going on that you just don't know how and what to deal with. And so this was the lead story. And then Trump opened to a deal with Cuba to avert chaos. There were some people killed in and around Cuba by the Cuban military, some Americans, and that should have been the lead story as we wonder what would happen there. They're looking for an excuse to install a new regime in Cuba and maybe make little Marco the president of Cuba. And savvy strategies to set Warner sail. And that was another huge story this week. Basically, the beginning of the end of CNN has happened now, folks, because Larry Ellison and David Ellison, who were at least Larry was just a businessman who did really well and supported good causes and was just a gentle guy in Silicon Valley, a very rich guy in Silicon Valley, somebody who donated a lot of art and things like that, has suddenly shifted to MAGA world, and he and his son now own TikTok thanks to an engineered plot by Donald Trump to hand them that. They own CBS News and have installed Barry Weiss there. And now comes CNN. And Trump engineered a plot to hand him Warner Brothers, which means everything, including CNN. And so I believe this is the beginning of the end of CNN, and at a time when CNN is more important than ever, as we see with the breaking news coverage. That's where you have to turn. And defiant Maduro failed to see that time was running out. And we also remember defiant Saddam Hussein failed to see that time was running out. Birth rate falls as more weight to be parents. So meanwhile, the American economy, Americans' confidence in their future is at an all-time low. And secret web of companies is helping Musk cloak his spending. So with all of this, as people say, gee, there's a good chance the Democrats are going to win the midterms. But we have things like this that are happening, shenanigans to stop elections, to cloak spending, to influence the elections. That's all happening now. And this is all, imagine trying to digest all of this. But that was yesterday, meaning Friday, Saturday morning's newspaper, meaning Friday's news. So, and then comes the 6 column headline that you can see here. And US strikes Iran. We call it 6 columns because it goes across all 6 columns that would usually be there. And Khomeini is dead. Trump and Netanyahu say that's been confirmed since then by the Iranian government. and attack with aid from Israel risks a broader conflict. No, no, what I was going to say, no shit, Sherlock. But that's the headline in the paper, a map of all the places that have been hit, and why Epstein inquiries yielded so few charges. And for those who forget, part of the reason why Epstein, after being convicted in 2008, got a sweetheart deal was he got that sweetheart deal from a prosecutor who became a cabinet member in Donald Trump's first administration. That direct ties to Donald Trump and his mentions in the Epstein files, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of times in the Epstein files, tells you about the direct connections and why this is happening at the moment. And Trump sows fears of election interference. So that is today's headlines. How does one deal with any of this, Neil? As you look at this, what are your reactions looking at all of this stuff? Neil, I can't, you're muted, Neil.
I muted myself because I was coughing a little bit. Didn't want to interrupt.
No worries.
The To me, it's always interesting to think through what we're seeing, what we're reading, and the information that's coming in front of us. One of the headlines I saw was that within minutes of the attack on Iran, the amount of disinformation that was out there was more than anyone's seen before in terms of fake video, fake reports. It's there. I saw a video of what looked like a fighter jet being attacked by a missile, and having the pilot having to bail out. And for all of the criticism of Twitter under Elon Musk, they have this new thing called community notes, and sometimes they actually are helpful. And the note on that video was, "This is understood to be video from a game. It's gameplay video. You can tell by XYZ the way the plane is moving, etc. This is not true." There was another tweet that I saw which purported to be a long story about the negotiations between the U.S. and Iran, and it purported to be someone who involved in managing the negotiations. Very detailed, like TikTok of what happened on Monday, on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, etc. And at the end is when I saw the community note saying this person has nothing to do with the negotiations. It's completely made up. So we have to be very careful with what we're reading, what we're seeing. And that's why I'm appreciative that when I see articles in the New York Times or online where they are they're adding the comment, "This has not been verified by the New York Times," or "This video has been verified." It's really important to have trusted news sources like that.
And that's why we do this show, because we want to promote not just newspapers, but news. We're fighting misinformation and disinformation. This is one of the things that Neil and I are doing to help try to, in a small way, contribute to the possibility of better news and better understanding of how news is made. And folks, we're not talking about just the New York Times. We want you to subscribe to a publication of some kind in your local town. Thousands of newspapers have been closed, tens of thousands of journalists have lost their jobs, but people are working every day, fighting every day on our behalf to get quality news out there. So please subscribe to a local publication. And if someone watching here has any ideas on how we can kind of improve or partner or help promote this idea, please write to us. And you can get to us via Sree@digimentors.group or Neil@digimentors.group. And if you're not on Neil's weekly note where he sends out what we're covering, who our guests are, all of that, our special PDF, we get world exclusive PDFs from the New York Times that you can't get even as a New York Times subscriber. Please get on his list, Neil@digimentors.group. And you send that out, Neil, sometimes late Saturday morning. And it's just a cool way to just know what's in the works and get those PDFs. And if you go into our library of stories at digimentors.group, look for the New York Times read along. You'll find some really cool stuff in there. So you want to get it. We have so many people watching, Neil. We want to say hello to Mary C. Curtis. former guest on the show. I'm future guest, I'm sure. She's checking in from Charlotte, North Carolina, though that she'll be in New York City this week for New York City, New York News Women's Club of New York Front Page Awards. Veteran and Congressman Jason Crow is right. This war will be fought by working class kids. My sister is a Gold Star mom. My gentle nephew Barry should be here. You are so correct. Our our condolences. And for those not familiar with the term Gold Star, that means they're the parents of someone who's lost a child in battle in behalf of the U.S. And may his memory be a blessing. And so many American families, children who are so bright, so smart, do well in school, in high school, find they have no choices but to go into the military. And I'm all in favor of the military having good people and people who want to be there and people who choose to be there, not people who have to go there because of the economic chaos that's there in the world. Long before Donald Trump, this has been a problem. So there's something we want to think about. We also go ahead, Neil.
So I want to jump in and from Instagram, several people are watching, and we had Pradnya watching from the skies going into Atlanta. Our good friend Diane Stefani is actually at JFK Airport waiting to board her flight for St. Vincent in the Caribbean. So we have a lot of people traveling, but they're still checking in and watching our show.
Yeah, we're so grateful to everyone who's doing that. There is so much stuff to cover and to talk about at this time, but we do want to acknowledge some folks who are with us, and including one of our partners is here. Alex Counts is driving to West Virginia from Maryland and excited that today is the first day of early giving for India Giving Day. So that's a perfect segue for us to talk about India Giving Day. We are going to be producing India Giving Days 3 hour live stream. I'm honored to be part of the on-air talent, but our team, Neil and Christian and others, are working behind the scenes to put together a fabulous show. We have done this on so many countless programs, but this one is particularly meaningful to us and we're grateful. Please go to indiagivingday.org, indiagivingday.org. And the Giving Day is on the 13th of Friday, the 13th of March, and the early Giving Day period has started. So there are 51 charities working to improve the lives of people in India. And you can give to the ones you like: education or cultural stuff or feeding the poor. There's so many things, and we want everybody to participate, everyone to get involved, because this is something that will make a big difference in our ability to talk to folks, to raise money, raise awareness. So go to India Giving Day today, please, and check it out, and then know who you want to donate either early or you want to donate later. And we have a great show next week. Sejal Desai is going to be here, co-chair of India Giving Day in the steering committee of India Giving Day, and she's on the steering committee of Akanksha Education Fund. And they are a very important nonprofit that's helping the people of India. So please take a look at that and watch for what we will be talking about. We have also shared this in our newsletter before, and we'll do it again. And we're talking about how India Giving Day is back. Starting on March 1st and continuing through March 13th, individuals, families, communities, and companies can contribute to their favorite charity, and every dollar raised between now and the 13th will be given will count towards those organizations, count for India Giving Day. And this is all sponsored by the India Philanthropy Alliance with the support of, look at these names: Ford Foundation, MacArthur Foundation, Otnick Philanthropy, A Star Capital, and many others. So you know this is going to be a high quality event with lots of really important stuff happening. So everyone who can support, please do. And Pradnya says, let's keep going. Pradnya says the Epstein files may be the surface excuse, but it's really about the latest round of racist hegemony. And Ron says Emirates is the best. I leave on Wednesday morning back to New York. So Ron, I love Emirates, but you're saying that they're able to fly from Dubai Airport. He says everything is cool. That's a cool cat
It's
who can say that
it's hard
while
to
living
imagine.
there. Yeah,
Dubai was actually hit by some of the
multiple
rockets.
times, including
I
that
think there
famous
was.
that Sail airport, that Sail hotel, the Burj,
Yeah.
the Burj Arab was hit. Sudha, your mom says, Sree, I miss your mom's talent. She was a great dancer and wrote a nice book about her life and experience. Thank you. That means so much. And Paula says, good morning from Tallahassee, longtime producer of the show. And Gaurav Ghosh is watching on LinkedIn. Gaurav, thank you. I'm watching from London, Ontario. I'm glad you clarified the Ontario part. And Sashi is watching from the Washington, D.C. area. Thanks for this discussion. We're talking about the news, folks. This is the front page of the New York Times. We're going to look at the rest of it, but we want to hear from you. Post your comments, post your questions wherever you are. We're going to try to analyze the news with you and for you. Linda is watching from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Mary says, will Trump say a war is a national emergency, so need to suspend midterm elections? Not as far-fetched as it sounds, I fear. Just imagine, folks, journalists like us, Mary, Neil, me, who have been covering the world and covering America for decades, seeing that and not laughing it off or not saying that's ridiculous, because that is in fact what could happen. And that's why everybody needs to call their congressmen, call their senators and say, you are paying attention, because if you don't do that, they're going to continue to go along. The only reason these congressmen aren't speaking up is because they think that's what we want. Well, I just want to show you a survey that just came out from The Economist about this war. And this is what it says: support for US military action. By the way, this is the tripod I use when we look at my camera. So look at what it says. Support for this war. The Economist YouGov says it's 27% for the war, not sure 24%, oppose 49, and that's before the killings started. Now we're seeing the killings happening, and so I know there is not broad support for this. That same 27 to 30% that supports Donald Trump no matter what he does is now still here. So they're going to stay, but it's the rest of us that have to speak up and stand up. And there's just so much here. There's a question that Deborah has about how the Ayatollah was killed. There were reports for weeks that he hadn't been heard from, so I'm not sure exactly, and I don't want to speculate about that. And there is no doubt that the Ayatollah and his regime brutally killed thousands of their own protesters, people in their in of their own citizens, and have engineered terrorism all over the world. But the question that's uncomfortable for the British government, the French government, the German government is, what is the difference between Trump's aggression against Iran and the aggression of Putin in Ukraine? How do you differentiate that? There is no new credible evidence that Iran was about to attack the United States or about to get a nuclear bomb. If you go back, you can see on YouTube video of Mr. Netanyahu basically from the mid 90s saying Iran was 10 days away from getting a nuclear weapon. 10, 15, 20 days, 1 month, whatever. Every year he's been saying that. So what is it about today that why are we attacking now? And another question, they told us multiple times how well the attacks of last June had gone. And there was a story from the White House, a headline in the White House. We have destroyed Iran's nuclear capability. Anyone who disagrees is fake news. So if they got rid of all the nuclear weapons and the nuclear program, why do this and why do it now and why do it in our name without Congress? Another observation, and Neil is going to show us some great coverage of the State of the Union over the last 10 years. We're going to do that in a few minutes. But I want to point out that every president, even presidents like George W. Bush, who had many misadventures and killed millions of people in Iraq unnecessarily, had a process for bringing along the American people. And the State of the Union is a perfect place to do that, to talk repeatedly. We're going to bring you along. We have to, here's the case we're making. But in a 107-minute speech, he spent 3 minutes. So less than 3% of his time talking about Iran. So he did not use it in any way to set us up, to prepare us that we're going into war. And I felt better prepared about the snowstorms that hit New York and the Northeast than I did for this. And that's part of why we are so upset. Under no conditions should an American president and go out to war without telling us what's happening, because he serves at our pleasure. He serves at the Congress has the right to approve war. Nobody else does. But he is doing it like this. Neil.
Two points, Sree, from what you were talking about. One is there's a question. Some of the reporting I saw, the timing of why now, kind of in general over the last the few weeks as they're planning, I think is still needs to be determined. But specifically, why they attacked during the daytime in Iran, 2 a.m. Eastern time or 1 a.m. Eastern time, I think. It was because they had intelligence, in theory, that there was the leadership was all going to be in one place in one meeting, and that's what they moved up their timeline for the attack.
I hear you on that. That makes sense. It was a good target opportunity, but they're in negotiations.
But
So
why?
who's
Yeah,
going to trust Americans to negotiate if you're going to attack
no,
during the negotiations?
no, I agree. The general timing didn't make sense, but the specific, when they actually went forward with it. The other thing to note, and I appreciate your point about the role of the president in explaining to the American people what's going on. No, he didn't say anything. He didn't, foreshadow this at all in the State of the Union. Didn't lay the groundwork for it. Didn't explain why. He also didn't say anything after the attack. He put a video on Truth Social. It didn't do an address from the Oval Office. Didn't do anything in terms of announcement after the Ayatollah was confirmed to have been killed. He went back to Mar-a-Lago. That's where he monitored events from, and just hunkered down. Did a fundraiser or something. So that's also, I think, part of the issue. It's not just not telling people, not laying the groundwork for it, but it's almost like he could care less to explain what's going on even after the fact, much less notifying Congress as he should.
Thank you. That's very, very, very good points, folks. That's Neil Parekh. I'm Sreenivasan, and we are doing the New York Times read along on a very important news day, a historic day. We are trying to understand what's happening, and I want to show you, Neil. You mentioned Mar-a-Lago, so I do want to show you
Yes.
this. This is a lot of people are calling it the Situation Room at Mar-a-Lago. That is not a Situation Room. Every journalist who calls it that is part of the propaganda, because a Situation Room has deep cover, deep security, really thick walls. That's a curtain, and that's a guy poking his head out of the curtain. What the hell is this? This is not, and members are walking around like this is not a Situation Room. Reed Gellin says that's not the Situation Room. It's an insecure ballroom protected by pipe and drape. And that, look at you can see everything that's said. Look at the top of that space, Neil. Whatever you say is going over. This is less secure than a bathroom stall where the door doesn't go all the way down, and it's there like that. Like, this is so outrageous. And then somebody said, "Hey, Secretary Rubio, see you feeling good about selling your soul for this?" And look at the guy behind the curtain. Like, this is not a way to wage a war, not a way to run a railroad, not a way to even run a circus, but as they say, elect a clown, expect a circus. Elect a clown, expect a circus, and we're insulting circuses with that. And this is, we're trying not to make jokes, too many jokes, because it's of the moment. But if you don't laugh, you will be crying all day, and that's unfortunately the way everything is now. And so this was on my feed, and I shared this, and you can see I'm
This
live
is
on the right, and people are watching. So we're grateful
this
to
is
everyone who's watching right now.
very similar, Sree, and I want to make sure it's not the same picture because he is wearing the white hat with the blue lettering.
Mhm.
So that's what I remember seeing him the other day. But Venezuela was a similar situation. They did they monitored the events from a room that had pipe and drape. It's certainly not secure communications, much less a Situation Room.
Shashi says the Washington Post also has a 6-column headline, right? The 6-column headline. Khomeini dead in U.S. Israeli attack to topple Iran's regime. Deb says those are her thoughts too to Mary. And Nitin is watching and he's saying Epicenter NYC because you want to understand how New York City's communities are feeling about this. Epicenter is a great website that looks at news from all over New York City, and I strongly recommend it. Please check it out. Nitin, thank you for saying hello. Carol is watching. Hello from Tampa Bay. Thank you for watching. A reminder on how to get added to our mailing list, neil@digimentors.group. And from Fort Lauderdale, hey, we got a lot of Florida in the house. Dr. Tachi, who was a guest of mine on MLK Day last year, 2025, the day of the inauguration on Sunday, the day before everything kind of went haywire. And we had a wonderful morning and a wonderful show. Thank you, Dr. Tachi. Watch her shows on Instagram. She's very, very good. Sudha says that during the attack, a school of young children was bombed and more than 100 young girls have died. That is very sad and is absolutely unacceptable. Disinformation and misinformation is crucial to understand. Thanks for your diligence in sharing matter of facts, even if opinions are added. That's right. We're going to add our opinions, but we're sharing the facts, and that's what we do everywhere. And Dr. Tachi says, fantastic news about India Giving Day. That's a great note. Thank you, Dr. Tachi. We appreciate that very much, and we're very grateful to you. 51 NGOs is a drop in the bucket, but this is a great start, says Pradya, who is an expert on philanthropy. So she knows what she's talking about. And look at Diana watching from Murrieta, California. She's up, as always, at 6 in the morning and sharing with us. Radjan is watching from Bayshore, Long Island. Thank you, Radjan, for watching. It opened up this afternoon, says Ron Thomas, back with limited operation. And that's
He's talking about
something.
the airport
Yeah,
in
the airport in
Dubai, in
Dubai.
case
Yeah,
people.
exactly. Yeah, so Ron Thomas says that there's a national emergency here in the US. I never thought of that. Thank you, Marcy Cartis. Look at that. Somebody is saying, we try not to show the trolls, but MAGA is 90% and we supported, says somebody. It is not 90%. MAGA is 30% of America and less. And hopefully dropping more than that, but I think that's the floor and that's the ceiling also. So let's hope that stays there. We are just going to I'm going to do one more greeting and throw it back to Neil. When we also have to look at the paper, there's so much stuff to cover. Ying Chan, greetings from Hong Kong. We need authentic news more than ever. Ying is my partner in many Hong Kong oriented shenanigans and great projects. She is at Hong Kong University, the School of Future Media. And Neil, the reason I'm going to Dubai is so that I can see my brother and then go to Hong Kong to spend a week with Ying teaching AI workshops around Hong Kong. Well, it's a small place, so it's not that impressive, but we're doing that. So Ying, I am going to get to you. I won't come through Dubai. I'll go the other way. And by the way, prices of tickets the other way going through the Pacific have gone up triple in the last day because Americans and others are the traffic there is just crazy. So Neil, over to you.
Thanks, Sree. Several things to talk about. First, with Ying watching, I thought it'd be a good opportunity to reference our good friend Steve Taylor. Steve, as you know, passed away a year ago tomorrow. So it's been 1 year since he passed, and we think of him often. I think of him a lot. He was a longtime producer on the show and a very close friend. That's a picture of me and Steve the last time I saw him. And then later that evening, Sree took a selfie with a group of us that went out to dinner.
And that's Steve on my over my shoulder. You can see him there. Yeah.
He's actually
over
coming
your
from
shoulder.
the right. There's
he's actually your shoulder. Yeah, he's on the
just
right
to
of
the
the
left.
screen.
Yeah. What I wanted to do was to also make reference to the fact that Steve was very devoted to several causes, in particular the Sunday Love Project that is based in Philadelphia. So on the 1 year anniversary of his passing, we're going to make a contribution to the Sunday Love Project in his name. Here's a little bit. You can see a little bit of the work that they do in Philadelphia. It is something that I've been thinking about for a while, And I know that he would appreciate it. I know his parents would appreciate it as well. So Ying, the reason I brought it up after your comment is Steve worked very closely with you on multiple projects, particularly the concert that we did several years ago. I think this might have been 2021, Sree, if not 22. So just wanted to give a shout out to our friend Steve Taylor.
Thank you, Neil. I just want to say about Steve, the reason we could partner with Hong Kong University. Neil was still very busy doing his other job. He hadn't joined Digimentors full time yet, and Steve was able to work with me to do multiple live conversations from Hong Kong about the pandemic. We talked to the world's leading expert on masks. We talked to other experts on various parts of the crisis, because East Asia was ahead of us and doing so much more to combat the problem. And especially in Hong Kong, leading researchers came on shows that they would talk every day, and Steve and Neil helped produce those. But we had a unique opportunity to do a live concert from Hong Kong. The students of Hong Kong University, the music department, put together a beautiful Western classical music concert. And I needed Steve there because his love for music and his knowledge of high-end classical music, as well as his knowledge of instruments and how to do that all technically so it sounds good on YouTube and all those channels. So we were able to do, I think, 2 or 3 concerts with him, and we are so sorry that he has left us for a variety of reasons, but we will miss his talents, especially at this time. And speaking of Philadelphia, I just wanted to tell everyone about another project that we are involved in. Our very good friend Shankar Vedantam, who has one of the world's top 20 podcasts. It's called Hidden Brain. Many of you will know it. Many of you will love it. Well, he's coming to Philadelphia on March 21st and coming to New York City on March 25th. For a live show in front of thousands of people. So if you can at all get to Philadelphia or to New York to go to the Miller Theater in Philadelphia or Town Hall in New York, please get there and listen to Shankar talk about 10 years of Hidden Brain and the enormous worldwide global success he's had. He's still so humble and such a great guy. Let me see if I can get this little audio playing here.
Hi, this is Shankar Vedantam from Hidden Brain. I'll be presenting 7 key psychological ideas right here at New York City's Town Hall on Wednesday, March 25th. For more information and tickets, go to hiddenbrain.org/tour. That's hiddenbrain.org/tour. I hope to see you there.
How cool is that, Neil? So
that's great, Sree. That's great. I want to also bring in some comments from Twitter. Our good friend Anita Joe is watching, and she's tweeting during the show. So I'm keeping an eye on our Twitter feed as well. She said that she has a dear student from nearly 30 years ago when she taught in California who is from Iran. She posted that on Facebook, her hopes that a regime change would happen, that we hear the cries of children and families. She's now a counselor for kids. So she was giving a shout out to that, and I wanted to thank her for watching as well. Sree, before we talk about and Ying just added a comment. She remembers Steve well, his passion and dedication, and she misses him. So thank you, Ying, for that. Before we, as we get into the paper, Sree, and this may not be in today's coverage now, but I do want to ask you about AI and the military, the Department of War, negotiating with Anthropic to have full access to their AI platform without guardrails. And up to the 5 p.m. deadline on Friday said, okay, if you're not going to play ball, we will declare you a supply chain risk and kick you out of government contracts, and then turn around and sign a deal with OpenAI, which runs ChatGPT, with the same guardrails in place. We've talked about our use of AI and the different ways you can use it. We did a show on shining light on shadows just Thursday on the mental health impacts of AI. Walter Grayson was our guest. How AI and social media are leading to depression and anxiety. Um, and my question for you: does this give you pause in your use of a specific platform, ChatGPT versus Claude, Anthropic?
All right, we have 15 minutes left, and we've covered a lot, but I do
And
want
that'll
to
take an hour. I know.
take an hour. So I'm in my newsletter, everyone, sreenet.substack.com, sreenet.substack.com. I write specifically about this. And here's the thing that we need to think about, how I frame this. These AI companies have done great damage to the world already. There will be some great progress that comes from AI, including in healthcare and other things. But this military use of this is an especially big problem. And kudos to Anthropic for stepping in and saying, no, we're only going to allow you to do this if you make sure humans are in the loop and the last decision is by a human and not by a robot, even if it's our robot. We don't trust it enough. And that got Pete Hegseth and Trump mad. Why would that be a problem? Why wouldn't you want to do that? Especially, Neil, we heard this week results of simulations, thousands of simulations where robots, these AIs, were asked to face global crises. They didn't de escalate, they didn't discuss, they didn't negotiate, or they negotiated. And you know what they did at the end? Launch the nuclear weapons every single time. Every single time. Why would you want robots in charge? And by the way, that decision by Sam Altman to accept the guardrails or non guardrails of AI use by the military shows you just how terrible all these AI people are. Though I give credit to the folks at Anthropic, and I'm grateful to, and that's Claude. And so you're seeing celebrities like Katy Perry and others, Ashton Kutcher, just going in and paying for a year of Claude and saying, we support that. So I think that's really important. However, you should know that AI from Claude and Anthropic was used, according to new reporting by the Wall Street Journal, in the Iran attacks. So even though they declared them a national risk, they used them anyway. And because it takes time to unwind, from that, so they use them anyway. And so Anthropic ends up having blood on its hands. But you should know, when you're dealing with this regime, and I say regime here in the US, you are going to get your hands dirty, and you're seeing that. And final thought on this, we can talk much more about it. Go into my newsletter, post comments in there so I can respond to you there. Is that Republicans have always been free market Republicans, the free market party. Well, the free market party is accepting Donald Trump putting not just his thumb on a scale, taking the scale and breaking it on so many topics when it comes to private companies and private the private economy. How are they accepting this? And that's where, even if you don't care about little girls being killed in Iran, you don't care about that, a school of girls, doesn't matter to you. Care about the things, the principles you said you cared about. You said you cared about this, right? You cared about the free market, and you cared about how the government is bad, corporations are good. You believe that. You made say that the Supreme Court say that corporations are like people and should be allowed to influence elections. Well, where are you now? Every single Republican who is not understood that this is a problem is now part of the problem, has always been, but now is part of the problem. Neil, you got me started on something, as you can see, but we do need to quickly look at the headlines.
Yeah,
Let's see
go
what
ahead.
else is going on. This is the Times Magazine. That's a stunning cover, I think. A new law was supposed to help free women convicted of killing their abusers. Why are nearly all of them still in prison? Wow, I did not know this story. And look at this woman, and look at her hair, Neil. What a picture this is. And so the idea is that if you are a victim who fought back and killed your abuser on purpose or by accident, you should be given a reduced sentence, perhaps. That, and there is some, you can discuss the philosophy around that. But if they said that's going to happen, why are they still in prison? So that's that cover. Wow. story I have to read. And the Sunday Opinion cover is The Pointless Destruction of American Science. And we are seeing that it's going to take generations, even if RFK resigned tomorrow, if Donald Trump resigned tomorrow, the generations of damage to our health systems, our research, the planet's environment, all of that is not going to be fixed. And we are in that emergency now. The Sunday Style cover is Demna takes on Gucci. The brand, ready for a new look, found a designer seeking a transformation. So I guess he's the new director of Gucci. You and I are not the right people to be discussing this. We should not even be allowed to see this, but that's the story. They even has his chihuahuas in the shot. His chihuahuas are named Chiquita and Cookie. All right. I don't know if I knew that or I wanted to know that, but we know that now. Let's see. The book review cover is Now I'm a Believer. In Why I'm Not an Atheist, Christopher Beha makes the case for faith. And that's interesting. The review, I would like to see that and understand that. I'm a believer. I'm a devout Hindu, but I believe in pluralism and embracing the world as I learned from my dear mother. All right, here is Arts and Leisure. The cover is, oh, wow, that's the US. It's on fire. What's the story? Survivor is America. Over the years, the reality TV show has evolved as both a game and a social metaphor, and that should be interesting. Neil, did you know there are already 50 seasons of Survivor, meaning two seasons every year? And so this is the 50th Survivor. I can't believe it. It seems like yesterday when it started, which was 25 years ago. What else do we have? The Metropolitan cover, banned by the Soviets, available in New York. What is that about? The headline here is A Professor Has Built a Collection of Contraband Books from an Earlier Era. You folks who watch the read along, who read my newsletter, know I talk a lot about Russia. Why? Because I grew up in the Soviet Union, at the height of the Soviet Union, under Brezhnev in the 70s. I was a young kid. I used to speak fluent Russian. I was a good communist. I'd come home saying Lenin is God. So I've seen the show before. I know what governments do. Even though I was a kid, I understood how bad things can be under totalitarian and authoritarian regimes. Here is the real estate cover, and it is it's called A Negro Coney Island That Wasn't. In the 1920s, a wealthy black man fought unsuccessfully to build an amusement park on Hart Island, home to the city's Potter's Field. So, Potter's Field is a term that most international people won't know, and some Americans may not know. What it is a place where folks who have died and have nobody claiming the remains are buried there. It's a very sad place, as you can imagine, but they were going to make it into an important recreation area for Black families, and that didn't happen. That's the cover of Real Estate. And then we spoke about Dubai earlier. This is an unusual story. Can a fortune create Dubai in the Caribbean? A Bitcoin baron wants to establish a libertarian paradise on the island of Nevis. Not so fast, many residents are saying. And Oliver Janssens wants to build a self governing enclave on Nevis where a select few would have special privileges. Again, these are rich people going to places of great poverty and pain and saying, we're going to not save you, but we're going to save ourselves and you will come along for the ride, better or worse. AI puts a spin on old internet privacy risks. People are sharing more with chatbots, but need to watch what they reveal. What a set of stories. That's the paper. We have a few minutes left, folks. Let's take a look at some of the comments, Neil, and what people are saying. We're so grateful to everyone for being here, part of our wonderful New York Times read along family. I'll hand it to you, Neil.
Sure. So we have several comments that have come in. Let me see back to where we left off in the conversation. Going back, Rose Harwitz says hi, good morning from Connecticut. And Deborah Kerr says it's all about being exposed in the Epstein files, so he needs a diversion. And earlier, Dr. Tachi says we've proven ourselves to be untrustworthy. That's another thing why are we allowing for the administration to enact official policy through social media? That is has always been a concern. It's something that even in the first Trump administration, you would look for his tweets to see what he was going to enact, and even the administration, even department heads, secretaries of departments would be surprised, caught off guard by what President Trump was
I'll
saying.
give you an example why this matters, and Dr. Tachi is so on point with this as she usually is. In the earlier in the 2000s, there was a banana republic in Latin America where a world leader would tweet news. I mean, not just news, he would make the news or make policy. And journalists at the local newspaper would have to take turns waking up at 4 a.m. because that's at 4 a.m. he would tweet something, firing the foreign minister, doing something with the finance. And so the journalists had to take a rotation to do just what we're now doing as well. And that was, I'm a big advocate. There's no bigger advocate for social media than me. But even I thought then that was so ridiculous, because governments should be run by people who are having conversations with the cabinet, with their parliaments, with Congress, etc., not run like this. And this is how we're running things. And that's not acceptable, no matter how much I advocate for social media. But there have to be limits, and that's one of the limits.
Pradnya says, when will we stop being surprised by this nonsense? None of this is normal. We need to talk about how to take back normalcy. And Rahadian, Mar-a-Lago is like White House cosplay. They're pretending to be in charge down there. Shashi says, ignoring the thought behind the actions, the U.S. needs better PR. The communication is not uniform, not nice.
No,
Gaurav,
I mean, of course.
on LinkedIn, this is a diversionary war, diversion from Epstein's story. Many are calling it Epstein Fury instead of Epic Fury. You think it is that, or just playing to the tune of Israel?
Well, why not all of it? Why
question.
not more than one thing can be right at the same time? And there are allegations, and just for those of you who missed it, because it's easy to miss, there are allegations in the Epstein files that Donald Trump assaulted a minor, a child, and the Department of Justice, his Department of Justice, isn't sharing that information. So this has gone from being just, oh, he knew people who were doing things, an accusation about him. And if it's wrong, let that play it out, as we do with everything else. Everyone is innocent until proven guilty. But by doing this, it shows you how guilty he could be. And so we have to be very, very careful that we have to pay attention. This is what I keep telling people. I have friends, Neil, who say, I just turn off the news. I can't stand it. I don't want it anymore. You cannot do that, folks, because then we'll look back in 10 years and say, why wasn't there an election? Why wasn't there
what happened to Congress? I thought we used to have a Congress.
Yeah, somebody had a great tweet, Neil. I got to tell you this. The tweet was, America has launched a full-on manhunt for Congress to try to find where it is. Hey,
Jigar is
Jigar,
watching from Upper East Side,
and a great expert on the Middle East, by the way. Jigar, former president of SAJA, expert on digital communications and video and all that cool stuff, but also part of Doha debates, and so knows that part of the world. But Qatar, Bahrain, UAE, all which have American interests, have been attacked by Iran. The Irish Do podcast, we're checking in from DC at the Solus Noir Inc. Capital Irish Film Festival, where we are the podcast in residence. That's pretty cool. So I guess that's a sponsor name. And the Irish Film Festival sounds very cool. Neil, I'm going today to a Holi celebration in New York. HOLI, that's the Indian holiday of colors at the Museum of the Moving Image. So that's
I've heard of it.
Cool. Yeah, you have.
Sounds familiar.
And Apollo, after a long time, hello from Philadelphia. Great to hear from you, Apollo, and everyone. Check out the Hidden Brain Tour, hiddenbrain.org, coming to Philly and to New York.
Yeah. And he says a happy 10-year anniversary on our show. This is the 10th year of doing the read along. So it's been
like
it's
idiots.
been great.
Two idiots doing this. That's so crazy.
Patricia says, thank you for walking us through the headlines, and to the entire production team. Jigger said they just did a debate about tech utopias and shared a link in there. and so many more comments. What I did want to do, Sree, before we wrap up, we're a little bit past the hour. A couple of quick announcements. Again, to remind folks that next week, Sejal Desai will be joining us for a special Sunday New York Times read-along focused on India Giving Day. This will be kind of an old school format. We'll interview her for a bit and then cover the news, and we'll learn all about the India Philanthropy Alliance and the work they are doing in India.
And I'll be coming to you live from Hong Kong, Neil.
That's right. That's right. And then on Thursday, I'm going to be co-hosting another show, episode of Shining Light on Shadows, a candid conversation about mental health. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Alejandra Anastas is joining us. She's going to talk about the mental health impact of living in fear of ICE. She came over when she was 5 years old. She does have a green card now, but for most of her life, she was looking over her shoulder, and she is still very close with people who are in that situation. So she will be sharing a little bit about the impact of that. And Sree is showing a sticker, I guess, or a little card that they're handing out in New York. If you see ICE, snap a picture and call or text. Is that your cell phone, Sree, or someone else's?
No, not my cell phone. Please don't. Seriously, folks, please know about your rights, know about what ICE is doing in your city. Somebody said to me, Neil, but ICE is not in New York, but it is already. There are 200 people in detention. A high school student got kidnapped. A Columbia student got kidnapped, and Zoran Mamdani went in. Mayor Mamdani talked to Trump and got her released. I mean, it's such a mess. And our daughter Durga has joined an anti-ICE organization called Hands Off, and she's working in the Bronx, working every day to help give out stickers like this and talk about the dangers of ICE. And to the person you're talking to on Thursday, very important show. It's important to know that having a green card gives you protection, but we're living in a world where even being a naturalized citizen doesn't give you enough protection. We've seen citizens kidnapped, and we're also worried about what happens with the situation if they start denaturalizing people. That will be a problem. Yeah. And, we all have to worry about that.
So we're a little past the hour, Sree, but I do want to take a moment to share one last
Yes.
thing. We looked at the New York Times coverage of the State of the Union on A1. Now, this is from Thursday's paper, and I'll zoom in just a little bit. So, again, the State of the Union was Tuesday. Certainly, I understand it wouldn't be in Wednesday's paper because it was too late, but this is the A1 for Thursday. And I'll zoom in just a little bit so you can see from top to bottom. And I'm just going to share this without commentary. You'll see the article on the left here about the State of the Union, and then an analysis on the bottom. But what this prompted me to do is actually take a look at A1 coverage from the last 10 years to see how did the New York Times handle that over the years. This is back for President Obama in 2016. And you can see that's an interesting picture on the right, a big headline, 2 articles. It was his final address. 2017, President Trump's first speech. Now, this is not a State of the Union. The first speech to Congress is a joint, it's just an address to a joint session. It's not an official State of the Union because of, because they had just taken office. So that's something to keep in mind. The next year, and I'm going to walk through these quickly. We have these PDFs on our website for you. This is, again, a nice picture from the floor, President Trump waving, 2 big articles on the right. You can see this is 2018. 2019, the famous picture of Speaker Pelosi ripping up the speech. Again, you see the flag in the background, the vice president and the speaker. 2019, a different angle, not without the flag, but still a good picture, a good article on the side. President Biden, again, this was his first year, not an official State of the Union. Ukraine, March 7th, March 2nd, 2022. It's the second line in the full column headline, but the pictures are of the devastation in Ukraine, and you see the picture at the bottom. On the right-hand side, a small picture, but it's still a picture of the flag, the speaker, and the vice president. So if we go on 2023, similar placement of the picture on the right-hand side, big lead article. 24, the flag picture again. This makes sense. This is the Friday. This is 2025, nothing above the fold, and just a column on the left-hand side with a reference to the speech. So no image last year. That was Trump's first speech to Congress, not a State of the Union. And that brings us back to 2026, just a small picture on the left-hand side. Now, I was curious about what this was. To me, the iconic picture is the flag picture and the speaker and vice president. I had the chance, Sree, to talk to Tom Jolly, the print editor of the New York Times yesterday. And one of the things that he explained to me, there are several reasons for this. The first one is that the New York Times is now printed across the country, not in 27 printing plants as it was a few years ago, but in 20 printing plants. So there's been consolidation. So, for example, I think it's the Los Angeles market. The LA Times doesn't print the paper, gets printed in Las Vegas, which means the deadline is even earlier to get the paper out there and have it shipped out. The other thing, obviously, is with the late news on Tuesday, it's not going to be in Wednesday's paper. By the time you get to Thursday, it's old news. The New York Times is really moving in the direction of not being a daily source of news for the print edition. You can get that online, and if you're reading the app several times a day like I do, you're seeing the updates. Tom told me that they're really looking at the Times, the print edition, almost as a daily magazine to focus on enterprise stories and analysis. And by the time you get to the hard copy of the paper, you're not looking for breaking news when it hits your doorstep or when you pick it up from the newsstand. You're looking to understand the news. And that's why they're focusing more on analysis and kind of, if there is news that is made in the State of the Union, they would have given it prominence. But if you watch the State of the Union this week, there was not much news. It was a lot of political theater, a lot of puffery. So I understand kind of the news decision that was made. I still miss the iconic photo with the flag and the vice president and the speaker. That to me that's the State of the Union. But I think it was interesting to kind of look at what choices were made over the last 10 years.
I think that you did great analysis, and Tom told you that you could share the thoughts that you had, the kind of debrief you got with him, which is emblematic of our relationship with Tom, the print editor of the New York Times. And I remember Carla Baranakis, another great Times person, is now former Times person, producer on the show. She took us for brunch, with basically morning brunch at the home with bagels of the print editor of the New York Times. So we sat there and we read it. We met his family. It was so much fun. And he's been on the show multiple times since then. And we're very grateful to Tom and Wayne Camadoy and others at the Times for working with us to help explain what's going on. We call it sometimes a Kremlinology of the New York Times, to try and understand what it's doing and how it's doing it. And that's part of the reason we do the show. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. We're very grateful to you. This is the New York Times Read Along, and we will be back next Sunday. And let me quickly look at the comments because there's so many.
Yeah.
Apollo says, I'm speechless when it comes to what the White House is willing to do to divert the conversation from Epstein. Naomi shows us that Alexander Hamilton was born in Nevis. That's right. That's the immigrant part of his story.
That's where Diane Stefani is going.
The two worst words in modern parlance are collateral damage, ignoring there are human lives destroyed. Thank you for saying that. Caroline says you're garnering extra attention today. Support and love to you both. I appreciate that, Rajan. Thanks for all you do. Please stay safe. ICE is definitely in New York, says Naomi. And ICE is also on Long Island. Many brown immigrants here. Sadly, they're also anti-immigrant rhetoric feels omnipresent here too. big KKK presence in Long Island, still does. It had and still does. And Deborah saying, is the same true with the Wall Street Journal print? That's a good question. We could ask an editor of the Wall Street Journal one day. Sudha says, great show. Jigger says, very interesting insights. Thank you both for watching. Deborah says, thank you for the show and comments. Have a safe trip. See you all next week from New York. And Apollo says, this was an amazing show. Have a great week. Apollo, thank you. We will end on that note. Thank you to everyone who watched. Please share this right now with friends, family, either the podcast on audio on Spotify or on Apple. It'll be up in a couple of hours, maybe less. And we are grateful to everybody. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.
And if you joined us late, you can watch the show from the very beginning on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and our Digimentors website in just a few minutes. Thank you, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.